This is Dr. Laval, and welcome to my lecture on the psychoanalytic understanding of abusive relationships. My intention in this presentation is twofold. First is to address a topic of interest to many in regards to why someone might remain in an abusive relationship. The second, to use this topic to demonstrate the principles of unconscious motivation as it affects a person's behavior, mood, and thoughts. I hope that you find it informative and thought-provoking. We're going to be talking today about why some people might find themselves engaged in a pattern of abusive relationships which they find difficult to leave. I have treated many such patients over the years, and in general I have found that for all, the first abusive relationship they found themselves in was their relationship with one or both of their parents. We will be looking at how this first and primary relationship sets the stage for all future relationships. Please keep in mind that the view that I am presenting here is but one vantage point of what is a multi-determined emotional problem. Among the many reasons for abuse in relationships include economic reasons, political, social, cultural, religious, gender role issues, and psychological issues. And among the psychological realm, one vantage point, or one viewpoint, and only one viewpoint, is the psychoanalytic, but that is the one that we will be discussing today. When we talk psychoanalysis, we are talking about the great discoveries of Dr. Sigmund Freud, the father and founder of psychoanalysis. Freud used the analogy of the iceberg in his description of psychic functioning. A fitting analogy in that every ship's captain knows that upon approaching an iceberg, the part of the iceberg that is visible is but a small section of what is a massive structure, 90% of which is hidden below the surface of the water, and it is this hidden part that is the powerful part of the iceberg. This is the part that will rip apart the hull and sink the ship. Likewise, Freud believed that the most powerful aspect of our mind was the part of our mind hidden from our own conscious awareness, which he called the unconscious mind. The unconscious contained thoughts, feelings, images, and memories which remain hidden from conscious awareness. Also contained within the unconscious are repressed fantasies, wishes, and desires, especially those fantasies, wishes, and desires from early childhood. Largely as a result of societal prohibitions, as well as the internalized values of our parents, we keep these unacceptable aspects of ourself buried through a process of repression deep in the unconscious aspects of our mind. Should they threaten to come into conscious awareness, the ego will generate anxiety, which is a signal to the system to call up defense mechanisms, and those defense mechanisms will assist us in continuing to deceive ourselves so that we do not become aware of our true wishes, desires, and fantasies. Also, among the properties of the unconscious mind is its disregard for logic. The unconscious is not logical. It operates under what we call primary process thinking, which is the same type of thinking that occurs in dream states. And it is timeless. It has no appreciation for time. Once an event or feeling is repressed into the unconscious layer of the psyche, it remains as alive today as it was when it first occurred. So a person who believed 20 years ago as a child that they were being beaten by their parents because it was what they deserved, and that their parents hit them because they loved them, continues to believe the same on an unconscious level today as they engage in their current relationships. That belief continues to attach them to the person who is abusing them. However, soon after Freud's death, other psychoanalysts, especially those in England, revised the basic tenets of psychoanalytic thinking to include the importance of the child's early attachment to their parents. They called this school, this new school of psychoanalysis, object relations. And object relations focused on the internalized relationship with significant others, as well as how those relationships came to define our sense of ourself. Beginning with Melanie Klein, a child analyst, and then continuing with people such as Fairbairn and Winnicott, which make up the British School of Psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis began to focus on these early attachments rather than on the basic sexual and aggressive drives as Freud did. Klein and those that followed her believed that the child internalized or took into themselves aspects of these early relationships which structured their personality and became the prototype of future relationships. The child believed, if I am protected and cared for, this is because this becomes my definition of what it means to be loved, and as a result, I seek out others who will love and care for me as my parents did. But if I am unloved or neglected, then I define love as a relationship in which I am abused. And this is what I seek out as I attempt to attach to others. It is the only form of attachment I know. Attachment to others becomes the major motivating force in our existence. The question becomes, what type of attachments do we seek out? And that is largely determined by what we are accustomed to. Likewise, we define ourselves by these early relationships. If I am loved, then I feel lovable, and I develop good self-esteem. If I am not, then I grow to define myself as unlovable and undeserving of a loving relationship. As a person who feels bad or defective, I attach to those who represent my early relationship with my parents. In other words, I attach to those that will neglect or abuse me, because that's what I know, that's what feels safe. The implications of these dynamics should be clear. On a conscious level, no one wishes to be abused. However, on an unconscious level, what is the most powerful level, the person wishes to attach to others, and the only attachment which appears safe is an abusive attachment, because it is what is known. Leaving that relationship unconsciously represents leaving my parents and losing the only attachment I know. This is terrifying. And ironically, safety through attachment is a stronger motivation than happiness. It is harder to separate an abused child from their parents than it is a child who has been adequately cared for. I've seen this many times when I worked in foster care. Abused children will fight vehemently to remain at home, and they will find it extremely difficult often to make new attachments, especially to parents who are loving and caring. This feels unusual and unsafe to them, and they don't know what to make of these kind of relationships. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. There are numerous resources on the web in which you can further research topics such as Freudian theory, object relations, and psychoanalysis. Please feel free to email me any comments or questions, and I will try to address as many of them as possible. Thank you for your time and attention.